Hi, this is Eddie Deezen. You're listening to In the Green Room, my favorite podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of In the Green Room with Aiden Keene. I'm very excited for today's episode. I'm joined by someone whom I have grown up watching on TV and movies. You may recognize him from Grease, Punky Brewster, and even The Polar Express. And I think he's back. There we go. All right, I'm
There I
joined
am.
today by Eddie Deezen. Eddie, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Aiden. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to speak with you today.
Good. You having a good year so far?
Hasn't been bad. I've been working really hard on this podcast, and
Good.
it's moving along.
Very good. Cool.
So, Eddie, I'd like to jump right in if that's okay with you. I have a question for you that I want to go back before all the big movies and TV shows, and I'm wondering, before Hollywood and all that came into your life, do you remember the first time you realized that making people laugh might have felt natural to you, even if it wasn't doing stand-up comedy?
It was there from my earliest days. We look back, we all have our individual subjective personalities, and it was there from the earliest days. I was always a clown. I was always a bit of a troublemaker. I wasn't a mean kid, but I was a mischievous kid. I got into a lot of trouble as early as kindergarten. My teacher Mrs. Kozad, she'd put me out on the steps. He'd separate me from the other kids. I would be doing crazy stuff in kindergarten, and she would put me out on the steps. There were steps outside the room, and I would sit on the steps during kindergarten. The other kids would stay in and learn stuff, and I would be out on the steps. First grade, I went to elementary school, Miss Smith. She tied me in my chair with a jump rope. I remember I was crazy. I was always hyperactive and running around. And she literally took a jump rope and tied me to my chair. So I was always mischievous and getting into trouble. And it kind of combined with getting the laughs. I was like very restless, very hype. I was totally hyper, Like my roommate said, I'd be a Ritalin kid now. They'd have me on Ritalin, but I was very hyper and crazy. So that kind of started it. And then my first comedic influences, I know you'll get to that after, but were the Three Stooges, where I started to think professionally it's fun to make people laugh.
Okay, that's very interesting. I would have never guessed that about you, Eddie.
Yeah,
I would have
yeah,
never guessed.
yeah.
So you were influenced by the Three Stooges. So when you first got into comedy, it doesn't really sound like your kind of nervous, fast-talking persona that you had on TV was staged at all.
No, that's pretty much me. It's pretty much a lot me. Influenced by, it was who are you influenced by? Let's see, Daffy Duck. I based a lot of my character on Daffy Duck. The great, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you doing here? Hey, you can't go in this room. And I took that after Daffy Duck. He was my favorite cartoon character. And I remember I said that once in an interview. And then Steven Spielberg, I read a couple weeks later, he said, my favorite cartoon character is Daffy Duck. So I always wondered if Steven got that off me, but maybe not. But both of our favorite cartoon characters is Daffy Duck. He's a hilarious comedian.
That's awesome. And when did you get your comedic start professionally?
Um, Professionally, it would have been, I just posted on my page. I don't know if you guys see it, but I just posted on my performance on the Gong Show. I was 19. You can go to my Facebook page and see that. Or there's another site on Facebook called Growing Up in Cumberland. They posted, my hometown is Cumberland, Maryland. They posted my performance there. So that was my professional start. Now, before that, Aiden, although it's not recorded, I worked at the Comedy Store 3 times. When I first came to Hollywood, I was 18. This was 1975, 50 years ago. And I worked at the Comedy Store in Hollywood twice. Then they moved me to Westwood, and I bombed real bad. And I just decided stand-up comedy isn't for me. But I started as a stand-up comic when I was 18. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And I remember my first introduction to you was because I think everyone has seen Grease, but that actually was not my first introduction to you.
Hmm.
The first time I ever saw you
Hmm.
was season 1 of Punky Brewster. I grew up watching
Oh,
that with
right.
my
Yes.
mom. We watched that
8
together.
episodes.
Was that it?
Okay.
Really?
Okay.
You were my
Yeah.
favorite character on that
Yeah.
show.
8 episodes. 8 episodes. Then they let me go. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was, I won't necessarily say fun. It was hard for me. TV is always hard for me because you have to remember all that dialogue. Whereas movies, it's piecemeal. You do one scene at a time. And if you screw up, you just do it and say, okay, take two, take three. You have all the time, and not all the time in the world, but you have a lot of time. Whereas TV, you have to memorize a whole scene, a 22-minute scene. You have to know your lines, get it down. And even though my role in Punky Brewster was small, I still had to do that. And it's hard. There's a lot more pressure. And if you screw up, you're holding up everybody. You're holding up the whole show. So you got to start again. And the audience, and there's an audience there, and if you do a scene 4 or 5 times, it's not going to be that as funny as it was the first time. So it's much more pressure in TV. It's much harder. You have to be a different kind of performer. I'm more geared. I'm more wired for movies. It works for me better just to do one scene at a time. And movies also, they can get me cue cards, even to the extent of cue cards. When I did War Games, Aiden, they brought me in cue cards. I kept screwing up my scene, and the director finally brought me cue cards, and I read it, and I realized, oh, this is great. And then Polar Express, getting to Polar Express, I did the whole movie by cue cards. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And I'm wondering, do you have any specific stories about your time on Punky Brewster? Because one thing that always stood out to me was your interactions with George Gaines, who of course played Henry
Yes.
on the show. I always loved
Yes.
those scenes.
Yes, he was a wonderful guy. George was a wonderful, nice man. And outside of the show, in real life, this is what I owe George Gaines. He got me in. He was just the sweetest, nicest guy, totally nice man. But one day, he comes on he goes, Eddie, that George Gaines voice, Eddie, I hear you're a Beatles fan. I said, yeah. He goes, how would you like to go to see Paul McCartney? And it wasn't a Paul McCartney concert. Paul McCartney was appearing on the Tonight Show at NBC. We filmed at NBC, and Paul McCartney was going to be on the Tonight Show. I remember the date to this day because it was so cool. It was October 23rd, 1984, and he got me 2 tickets to go see Paul McCartney on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And I
Wow.
saw Paul there live. And then afterwards, Aiden, it was the only time I ever touched a Beatle. We saw Paul do his interview with Johnny. And then he came out, and Paul came out in this little rental car, this little mini car. I think Linda, his wife, might have been with him, but I'm not positive if I remember that right. But Paul was there. But anyway, Paul was driving, I remember, and he rolled the window down. And I ran up and I touched him on the shoulder. And then, Aiden, I felt this crushing weight on my foot, like an elephant stepped on my foot, smashing my foot. I think Paul drove over my foot. I think Paul McCartney drove over my foot. It was just the front of my shoe, and he whizzed over real quick, and was a very, very small mini car, so it didn't break my foot or anything. It hurt, like when somebody smashes into your foot, but it didn't break my foot. I think McCartney drove over my foot. Yeah,
Wow. Well, that's a story to remember for life.
yeah, yeah. And I
That's
touched the
good.
Beetle too. I got to touch him, so it was the only time I ever touched the Beetle.
I'm a huge Beatles fan, and I remember I saw Paul McCartney with my dad a few years
Yes.
ago, and that was like a religious experience seeing Paul McCartney.
Right. Was he in good voice?
Yeah, I mean, it was,
Yeah,
and
I know his voice. His voice is kind of given out now. I mean, the guy is going to be what? He's going to be 84. I mean, he's given the world so much. I think his voice is just kind of tuckered out. But I saw him on the Saturday Night Live special, the 50th anniversary last year, and it was the first time I heard his voice give out. He was just like recording it was really raspy but I think the experience is like seeing the Beatles. It's seeing Paul. It's
right.
not necessarily that the music is as great as the records and all, but it's seeing Paul. But I think his voice is tuckering out like our bodies. When you get older, your bodies tucker out. And you can imagine how many songs he sang. Probably what 20 million songs. His voice is probably so worn down. So, but on the other hand, he can probably get the best help, the best medical help for it. So maybe it is good. I didn't know if it was good nowadays. If it was like it used to be. I saw him in Aiden. I saw him in 1989 when him and Ringo. I saw him both that year, and he was still really in good voice then. But I always wonder now, is his voice still good right now? Yeah, or
I think
as good?
I saw him in about 2017, and
Hmm.
it was definitely still there, but
Okay.
I just remember the experience. My dad's not an overly emotional person, but when we all were singing "Hey Jude," I look behind me, my dad has tears running down his face, and it was just such a
Yeah.
cool thing.
Yes. You realize with this guy, this is what I figure. You figure he probably is given, this is an incredible statement, but it's probably true. He's probably given more joy and happiness to the world, to people, than any human being. If you realize what the Beatles did, what he's done, in the 50 or 60 years since the Beatles, how many people he's brought joy to, not even necessarily live, but with the records and all. And then with the live performances, I don't think anybody can touch Paul. I just think he would be the one that's given the most happiness to the world. So he's got really good karma.
Concert was about 3 hours long too, which was really impressive.
Yes. He gives the fans their money's worth, doesn't he? He'll give 3 and 4 hour concerts, which is
Absolutely.
amazing when you think about it for an 84-year-old guy. But he kind of like, he's changed the rules. Ringo too, look at Ringo's even older. He's still outdoing it.
We'll jump around to the Beatles here because since we're on this topic, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Hmm.
I would like to see, and I highly doubt that I can, but I would like to see if I could answer an Eddie Deezen Beatle trivia question if you have one.
Sure. Let me think of one to give you. Hang on. Let me think of one. Um, Give me 1 second. I have 8 million in my head. I'm trying to think of a good one. I don't want to waste time. I'll come back to it in like 5 minutes. Let my mind generate, and let's go on. And
Okay,
I'll one.
sounds good. We'll do that. So we'll talk about Grease for a minute if that's okay, because obviously that
Sure.
is so iconic.
Yes,
Um,
I lucked out, and that was my first movie, so I lucked out royally.
that was your first movie, okay.
That was my first movie. I won the lottery, and Aiden too. It got me in the union too. It got in those days. This was the '70s. I did Grease in '77, and in those days with the Screen Actors Guild, they had a rule. It was a catch-22. There's a rule: you can't be in the union unless you work, and you can't work unless you're in the union. So it's like, how do I get in the union? That's impossible. But Grease, I went into the audition, and they hired me, so I got in without being in the union, and I got in, and that got me my union card. Now I think Screen Actors Guild is merged with AFTRA. It's SAG-AFTRA, and I think anybody can come in and just join. So if you thought there was a million members on, there's probably so many millions in SAG-AFTRA now. The competition is so tough. That's the worst thing about showbiz is just the competition. You could be very good, very talented, but there's just so many people out there you're up against.
Absolutely. And what made you want to audition for Grease? Was it something to do with all the people that were in it or anything like that?
Well, no, my agent just got me the audition. You're pretty much your agent or your manager gets you the auditions, and you just go along with it. So I went to the audition, and I did it, and there were three guys there. This was a story. There were three guys there. There was Joel Thurm, the casting director, Randall Kleiser, our director, and Alan Carr, our producer. They were there three, and I was there. And it was a big cattle call. Everybody at the time, this was the time of Fonzie, Henry Winkler, and all the guys were dressed like Fonzie in leather jackets in the '50s, grease back hair, and all the girls, had saddle shoes and poodle skirts. And I heard the movie was called Grease. I saw the play later, but I heard the movie was called Grease, so I put a bunch of grease. I put Brill cream or whatever in my hair, and let him know Eugene is not a greaser; he's a nerd. But I didn't know, so I went in. I'm going to try for this role as Eugene, and I went in my little ice cream suit, and I put grease in my hair. And I did the audition. I had like three or four lines, and I noticed in the good sign that while I was reading, I have four lines. What's your name? I go, it's Eugene. They go, oh, thank you. And then I hit it with a pie. So I said my lines and I noticed they were nudging each other. You know how, like, when guys are checking out a girl, they'll nudge each other. Hey, look at that. Or when women are checking out this hunk guy, they'll, hey, get a look at that guy. So they were nudging each other. I thought that was a good sign. Anyway, the rest of this story, Aiden, this is how it happened. I don't know if are you a religious person? Okay. I tell this story. It's 100% true story. My religious friends say it's divine intervention. My secular friends say you lucked out. But anyway, they called my agent a couple days after the audition. They called and said, we want Eddie to be in Grease. So I called my parents. I called all my friends. I'm going to be in this movie called Grease with John Travolta. I told him it's this movie called Grease. It's my first movie. So I told everybody I was over the moon happy. A couple days later, Paramount Studios called my agent. They said, Eugene is a very small role. We're going to have to cut Eddie out of the movie. So my agent told me that on the phone. And of course, I wanted to jump off a cliff. I'm thinking, oh my God, not only am I not going to get to do my first movie, but I told everybody I'm going to end up looking so bad. I told my parents and all my friends I'm going to be in this movie, Grease. So my agent said, we're going to go to church and pray. So she drove down to my apartment. I had this little cheap $125 apartment in Hollywood. She picked me up. We drove to this church in Hollywood. It's still there. It's called our Mother of Good Counsel Church. It's a beautiful little church. We went into this church. Aiden and I prayed so fervently. Like, please, dear God, let something good happen. Please, God, let something good happen. I prayed so fervently. Anyway, a couple of days later, Paramount called back. They go, we're going to put Eddie back in the movie. We decided to keep Eugene in the film. So they put me back in the movie that way. Now, that story is 100% true. But again, is it a religious story or did I just luck out? Who knows? You take it however you want, but that's how I got Grease.
That's incredible. It really
Yeah.
is. And was filming it a really fun process, or was there anything in
Oh
it
my God.
being your
Yes,
first movie?
Aiden. When Denise and I do shows, one of the questions I get most asked always go, what was it like filming Grease? And this is always my answer. I go, do you remember the best party you've ever been to? The best party of your life, the greatest party where everybody was just the coolest, most fun time. And I go, imagine that party going on for a month and a half ago. That's what Grease was like. We would go every day. Now, in those days, I didn't drive. I still don't drive. But in those days, I didn't have a driver. I would literally take the bus. I would take three buses to Paramount Studios. Call times in movies are early, Aiden. So my call time would always be like 6 or 6:30. So I would get up at like 4:30 in the morning and I'd go out in the cold, wait for a bus, go down, get another bus, and take a third bus to Paramount Studios every day. On the set, everybody was so nice. Greece was a love fest. We all loved each other, all the actors, all the dancers, all the extras, all the crew, we all loved each other. Everybody got along. Some movies you do, there'll be, it's like life. There's an asshole, there'll just be a jerk or an asshole on the set. But Grease, there was nobody like that. Everybody was nice. John was incredibly nice. Olivia was so wonderful and nice. Everybody was so nice. Yeah, John always called me buddy. He never called me Eddie. He'd go, hey, how are you, buddy? Morning, buddy. How are you? And my first scene, Aiden, in Greece, when I walked down the stairs and T-Birds mess with me, that was my first scene. After every take, John would go, "Are you okay, buddy? Are you all right, buddy?" So we would go action, we'd do the scene, go hi, and then they would mess up my hair, and they walk on, and cut. John would go, "You okay, buddy? Are you all right, buddy?" Every take two, they'd mess with me. John, are you okay, buddy? Do you need anything, buddy? He was very solicitous, like an older brother to me. He couldn't have been nicer. He always called me buddy. Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah.
That gives me a whole new way of looking at that movie too, just knowing that that's how he is. It's really cool.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy you could ever imagine. Maybe in all the years, maybe he's the nicest actor I ever worked with. Tom Hanks would be up there too, but they were both incredibly nice guys.
One thing about Grease that I find really funny is it's always been one of my grandmother's favorite movies, and she is like the most
Mhm,
religious person you could think of, always doing
mhm.
something at church. And then as I got older, I started listening to some of the lyrics of the songs, and I'm like,
Yes, yeah.
"Really, grandma?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay."
They're very good. I didn't know. My favorite number in Grease has always been Grease Lightning. And I didn't know we did a sing along with the cast and I. We would do reunion shows, and we did a reunion show, and they had the words on the screen, where
Mhm.
you could sing along. And I saw the words to Grease Lightning, and I go, "My God, this is really a dirty song." Because if you listen to Grease Lightning, they kind of muffle over the word. You can't really understand what they're saying that well. They
Right.
go, "It's a real pussy," and they're going, "It's a real pussy wagon." They're saying. But you don't really hear them say that in the song. And then I saw the words on screen. It's a real pussy wagon. I go, "Geez, this is a gnarly movie."
Yeah, exactly, and all these high schools doing it as a musical too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
This
kinda
is this
funny.
is 50 years ago too. It was a different world than it is now. So
Right.
it was kind of really dirty. Like when Olivia came on the set, in that black outfit, the tight outfit. Every guy there were tons of gay people on Reed. All the dancers were gay, or at least half the dancers were gay, and all the guys' jaws dropped when we saw Olivia dressed like that. Now, if she was dressed like that nowadays, it would still create a stir, but not as big. But 50 years ago, to see a girl dressed like that in a tight black, body outfit like that was really something. It was incredible. The effect I remember. She just walked out and she was literally sewn in the outfit. When she had to go to the bathroom, they had to unsew it or something. I don't think she could even go to the bathroom. So
Wow.
it was just, yeah, they literally sewed her in.
I have one more question about Greece, and it might
Sure.
actually be about a mutual connection that we may have here
Hmm.
from the cast. I'm from a
Hmm.
very small town in Massachusetts, and there's not a lot of famous people from around here. There's a few, but not really.
Hmm.
But the one from my town in particular, his name is Lenny Baker, and he was in Sha Na, and he sang Blue Moon in the film.
Yes.
Did you get
And
to meet
was
Lenny?
Lenny the older guy? They were nice. I met Sean and on. They were so nice. Bowser was nice. They were super nice. But I got to meet him on set, and they were very nice. Yeah. But
That's
Lenny, is
really
he
cool.
still around?
No, he passed away a few years ago, actually.
Yeah, because he was fairly old when we did Grease, so I figure 50 years later he's probably not still alive.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. The high school I went to, the music award that they give at graduation is in his name, so that's really cool.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Yeah,
So
Sean and I were great.
yeah, they're iconic. Actually, Bowser just did his final doo-wop tour here last
Oh,
year.
did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very nice. I remember his mouth, how it was the biggest mouth I ever saw in a man. He did the thing where he bends over, and goes, he opens
Yep.
his mouth. And I said, my God, it's like an alligator's mouth. It's got these huge jaws.
Yeah, he's definitely a legend around here for sure.
Yeah, great guy, super nice guy.
One thing I'm curious about, we mentioned that you were a voice in Polar Express,
Yes.
and I'm curious, how is voice acting different from actually doing an on-screen role?
Well, just to make sure to start off, just to make sure a lot of people think we voiced Polar Express. We did it like a cartoon, like Dexter's Laboratory.
Mhm.
But we actually filmed that movie. It was filmed for 11 weeks. We filmed it just like a movie. Now the difference is, Aiden, we would get in every day. We get in the outfits. It was Tom Hanks, me, Nona Gay, the girl, the hero girl, she's actually Marvin Gaye's daughter.
Oh
And,
wow.
and Peter's yeah, and Peter Scolari, I had done a movie with him before. So Peter was the only one I knew before. But the four of us would go into wardrobe every day. We'd get dressed in a scuba suit. They would glue a scuba cap to our head. And then Aiden, they would put 152 dots on our face. And literally, this is how time consuming it goes. They would glue 152 dots to our face every day. It was a new process called motion capture. It was the first motion capture movie. We get these dots glued to our face and we get that way. And they filmed us with a camera, some kind of a infrared or electronic camera. They'd film us and the dots would make us look that way. And then we would film the scene. We go, yeah, I want all those guys at Santa Claus, me, Tom, Peter, no one would film it. And then Aiden, they had four little kids. They had a little kid, Tom, a little kid, me, Peter and Nona, and they would film the same scene. They do the same dialogue, make the same movements, and somehow they morphed our bodies together. So that's how we look like little kids. But that's actually the movements you see in the film are actually us. It's me and Nona's voice. For some reason, they didn't use Peter's voice. They used another little boy as him. And the guy that voices Tom is another guy too. Although Tom plays like six characters in Polar Express. He plays Santa Claus. He's the conductor. He's the hobo on the train. He's like different role. He's the mean marionette. I know what you're doing here. He's like that's Tom. So the original idea for Polar Express, Aiden, was for Tom to play every role. When they first got the movie, they go, Tom Hanks going to play every role in the film. And it just was too much. He couldn't play everybody. So he took like six roles. But the hero boy is Tom's movement, but another nice kid did the voice. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I just learned so much stuff right there.
Yeah. A lot of people think that. They'll ask me, they'll go, did you ever get to meet Tom Hanks? I know you did. And I'll go, yeah, we were together every day for 11 weeks. But they think, we voice it like a cartoon. Yeah.
So you have so Dexter's Laboratory. So you have done actual voiceover work.
Well, yeah, I
That's
love doing voice. I did a lot of Dexter's was the biggest, but I do a lot of cartoons. I did a lot of cartoons back in the day. I did Dexter's Lab, and I used to do voices for commercials. And I did a movie called Rockadoodle where I did a voiceover for that and different voices like that. Yeah.
what do you prefer doing?
Well, as far as an actor, it's more fun to act out the scene. You get to work with the other actors and be there and act. But as far as easy wise, if you want an easy gig, if you want the easiest job in the world, do a voiceover. Basically, Aiden, they just give you a script and you just sit there and read your lines. You just read, "Hi, Santa Claus, how are you?" And if they don't like it, take two. "Hi, Santa Claus, how are you?" "Hi, Santa Claus, how are you?" And you read it different ways. They'll say, "Give us three different ways," and you read it three different times. But voiceovers are so easy because you don't have to memorize lines. The hardest part of acting for me always was memorizing the lines. Whereas, we all have our different talents. Tom Hanks could like get a script and just go through it. He's a Shakespearean actor. He literally did Shakespeare. I could never do something like that. But in the early days, I would get a script in my early movies, like I Want to Hold Your Hand or whatever, and I would lock myself in my room and I would go over the lines over and over and over and over and over until it was ingrained in my head. And I would do it that way. But then as I got older, it got harder. And I just kind of really lost the ability to memorize lines. So that's just hard for me. But some actors, it's second nature. They can do it.
Right. When I was a kid, I had seen Polar Express. Obviously, I think most people have seen it. Um, but when my girlfriend and I started dating a few years ago, and I started, coming to her family events, every year the Polar Express is seen here in the house, and it's a tradition.
Oh,
And
cool.
so it's
Thank
it's
you.
really heartwarming to be able to talk to you about it.
Well, thank you. It was on three of my bucket list. I'm Jewish, but my favorite day has always been Christmas. I love Christmas. I think it's the coolest holiday. I think it's something the Christians gave us. It's so cool. It's probably the close on this terrible planet, on this horrible. It's not terrible in a bad way, country, but on this, well, let's say the country's in bad shape right now. We're kind of in a civil war. I don't get political, but we're in such a bad shape. Christmas seems to be the last vestiges of the time where we're all friends. We all get together and we all love each other. Which is kind of the way it should be, but it's really not now. Unfortunately, politics, gets into it and ruins it. It's too bad politics had to be invented, kind of
Right.
ruined mankind.
Well, at least as long as you know that you are part of a film that brings joy to so many people around that time of year and all year.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, I didn't finish my thought. I always, anyway, I love Christmas, and I always want to do a Christmas movie, like White Christmas or, well, Die Hard. I don't know if you consider that Christmas, but White Christmas or Charlie Brown Christmas. I always wanted to do one, and that was a Christmas movie. Tom Hanks is my favorite star. I always wanted to do a film with him, so that was another thing on my bucket list. And Bob Zemeckis is my favorite director, so I got to work with him. So that was three things on my bucket list. I got to do with Polar Express.
Cool. I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but not just about the Polar Express, but about any movie. When you're filming these things or, doing the work for it, do you think at the time like, oh, this is going to be a hit. This is going to last. This is going to mean a lot to a lot of people. Or is it sometimes you don't know until it happens?
No, that's a great question. And people ask me about that with Greece. I did that. I think because you're innocent and you're inexperienced, I think everybody thinks their first movie is going to be a hit. You get in your first movie, you go, "Oh my God, I'm in the movies." This is going to be like Casablanca or Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz. Everybody, and it's this turkey. Most people's first movie is a turkey because most movies are turkeys. Most movies are they're low budget, independent, or not every movie is going to be with Al Pacino or Marlon Brando. Sometimes it's a cheapie and it's usually not great. Grease, I left out my first movie was a quote classic. Everybody's seen it and it's going to be around for all time. Polar Express, I kind of thought we had a shot because Tom Hanks was the biggest star, you know. At the time, I think it was the biggest budget movie of all time. It was like, it's been surpassed now because money gets bigger, you know, more and more every year. With the Marvel films, you know, the superhero films are like $300 million now. But I think Polar Express was like 160 million. And I think it was like the biggest budget movie of all time. I remember Tom on the set. Tom was telling me, he goes, this is the biggest budget movie of all time. You know, so I figured, yeah, it's got a good shot, you know. So I figured we had a good shot. Anyway, cut to the premiere. I went to the premiere, Aiden, and I saw it, and I had never seen how we looked. I had just acted it out, and I'd never seen, and we look weird. You know, I've heard people come in, they go, you guys look creepy in that movie. You know, they'll even be nice. They'll go, I like Polar Express, but you guys look so weird. And we do look weird. You look at our eyes, we kind of look like zombies, you know. But I went to the premiere at Man's Chinese Theater, and I saw it, and I brought my girlfriend, I brought mom, and all my friends were there, you know. And I thought, this is going to bomb so bad. It's terrible because we look so weird. You know, I couldn't really watch it. And I was just so shocked. I walked out of the movie in the middle of it. My girlfriend, Lori, she goes, where are you going? I go, I'm going for a walk. So I went out. I literally caught a bus down Hollywood Boulevard. I was going to go home and I go, oh my God, I get in this movie with Tom Hanks and it's the worst movie. So I get in the bus, Aiden, and believe it or not, this is a true story. It's like the Twilight Zone. There was this African American gentleman, a really nice guy. I was literally on the bus. I'm not kidding you. I was literally crying. I was so upset. I go, oh my God, Polar Express is the worst movie ever. I was like crying. And a black guy sits by me, this African American gentleman, this nice black man. He sits by me. He goes, what's the matter, son? I go, I'm in this movie called Polar Express and it's terrible. It's the worst disappointment. I worked so hard. He goes, oh no, Polar Express. I heard that's a good movie. And this guy, just with his few words, he cheered me up. I shook his hand and I left the bus. I took a bus back to the theater. So I get in the theater. The movie was just ending at this time. It was like an hour and a half later. It was just ending. I walked down and I saw Lori, my girlfriend. I go, how was the movie? She goes, it's a classic. She's the first to tell me it was a classic, you know. And then later, Aiden, I think a couple days later, I went to Universal City and I watched the movie, you know, with my friend Tommy, just quiet, you know, not the pressure of the premiere. And I watched it and I go, this is really a beautiful movie. So I saw it for what it was there. But when I first saw it, I was so sad. I thought it was going to tank so bad, you know? Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And it's not even just, within families. There's a place around here also in Massachusetts. It's a big Jordan's Furniture, and every year they do a Polar Express experience, and it's the 4D ride, and they show the movie, and it's a whole thing.
Oh, cool.
It's
Very cool.
beloved. It certainly is.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Denise and I want to do one of those shows. We've done a couple, but we want to do more. I love doing those Polar Express shows. But believe it or not, a lot of places don't want to hire me for those. I don't know. I think because they could sell the tickets without me anyway. They don't even need me. So if we're going to sell the tickets, why pay this guy extra money? You know. So, but Denise is trying to book me into into the shows. You know, and hopefully we'll get some more this year.
Yeah, and I'd love it if you came out to Massachusetts too. It'd be great to actually meet you in person for sure.
Very cool. Okay, I have to ask you, Aiden, are you rooting for New England in the playoffs?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not big into football, but of course.
I bet on you on Sunday, Aiden. I won a little bit. I won some money on you on Sunday, and I bet on you before. The quarterback you have, he's really good. That guy, that May guy, he's really a good
Yeah.
quarterback. So maybe you can do it this year. Who knows?
I hope so. I hope so
Yeah,
for the sake of the town folk.
yeah, yeah. Well, you have such a rich history, you know, with Tom Brady. You know, it's like yeah, you can't say you've never won a ring. It's like the Bills. You feel sorry for the Bills. They never have won a ring all these years. And I don't know, has Seattle ever won a ring? I don't even know, but Seattle will probably win it this year.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
don't know. I'm
yeah.
more of a Red Sox fan personally. I'm into baseball.
Oh, okay,
That's where
gotcha.
I'm at, but
They were the very first baseball team I loved back in this is 1967.
oh, wow.
I loved Carl Yastrzemski, and you know, it was past Ted Williams, but I loved Ted Williams. Yeah,
Yeah, I've gotten to see a lot of those guys in person. I went to one game where Pedro Martinez was inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame, and Yaz was there,
right,
and
right.
God, there were so many were there.
Yeah,
It was
one
really
of the
cool.
greats.
Absolutely. Looking back now in 2026, is there a part of your career that you are most personally proud of?
I guess it would probably be Polar Express or Grease, just those two, because they're movies that just they hang on and they're always going to be there. It breaks your heart, you know, Aiden, when you go into a movie and you put your guts into it. And this happened to every actor. You put your guts into a movie, you know, and it turns out it's either a clinker, you know, a really dog movie, or it just bombs. Something, you know how weird showbiz is. Sometimes you can do a really good movie and it bombs. I did a movie which was Bob Zemeckis' first one called I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Yeah.
It's about us going to see the Beatles in '64 and it was the first film Steven Spielberg ever produced. And we did it. We all worked hard, you know, and it came out and it just died. We did a big promotional tour in New York. We stayed in the room the Beatles stayed in the Plaza Hotel, and the movie just died, and that breaks your heart. And then sometimes you do a turkey or a movie thing is really bad, and it'll clean up. You just this is the worst movie, and the public likes it. You can never predict what the public's going to like, so you never know. But I'd say just because of the impact, just because of the staying power and the fact that I can talk to almost anybody and they'll say, "Oh, I saw that." It would be Grease and Polar Express.
Right. And some of those movies too, I mean, just because some people don't deem it a classic, other people love it. Like, there's
Yeah, that's true.
my hero in the entire world is Elvis Presley. And out here
Oh yeah.
I have my own Elvis tribute show that I do out here with my band, and
Oh cool.
it's a constant thing for me. But his movies by any standards are pretty awful.
They're
But
pretty bad. Yeah.
but they bring
Yeah.
me a lot of joy anytime. Well, most of them
Yeah.
do. Most of them do.
No, you're right. Viva Las Vegas. Steven Spielberg says one of his favorite movies of all time. They're good, enjoyable films. You kind of see it just to see Elvis. He's like the biggest star of all time, and you get to see Elvis. And the sad thing about it is he had potential. If you look at the early films, he actually had potential to be a good actor. He
Mhm.
kind of like he plays that rebel guy in the leather jacket, with the sneering, the Elvis sneer and the sideburns. And he's actually very good in the early ones. And then he went in the army, and that was the worst thing that ever happened. The army, he was like this rebel, this iconoclast, and then he became yes sir, no sir, whatever you say. He got his sideburns cut away, and he lost that rebel character. He became kind of a different Elvis. And then the '68 comeback special, it became another the Elvis, and the sideburns came back, and he became kind of a different kind of Elvis. So he metamorphosized himself a couple different times, but the point is he had the potential if he had got good scripts and worked with good actors like the last one, King Creole. He worked with Walter Matthau,
Mhm.
and he worked with Carolyn Jones, good actor, good actresses. If he had the right people around him and the right scripts, he could have really been one of the great actors. I think he could have been. He worshipped James Dean, and I think he could have been like James Dean.
Absolutely. And there were two.
Yeah,
King Creole, most Elvis fans say is his best movie. My
right.
personal favorite is Jailhouse Rock, and Love Me Tender is
Hmm.
great too. It's like an old Western,
Hmm.
but it was the black and white
Loving
ones.
you, loving
Loving
you.
You,
I
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a great one too. And then, like
Yes.
you said, it just kind of went from there when the Colonel was in.
Well, sadly, he did. GI Blues came out first, and that cleaned up. That made a myth so that the Colonel, is wants to make the money, and the Colonel's thinking, "Oh my God, wait a minute!" And then Elvis tried two more semi-rebel films. He did Wild in the Country, and he did one other one right after that. And Wild in the Country, I think, is the only Elvis movie that didn't make money. It was the only flop he ever had. As bad as his movies got in the '60s, they still made money. But that was the only one that bombed. And then, of course, the Colonel goes, "Wait a minute, we tries this rebel stuff. We lose money. Let's go back to the formula." And he started doing, the singing, dancing ones, where he's kind of a straight guy. So that became his whatever his not hell, but that's kind of where Elvis started descending down. He started dwindling down. I'm sure because he was a smart guy. I think he saw the trap he was in.
Yeah,
He's got to turn out these films, and he lost this kind of popularity and this rebel image he had. So he probably felt bad about it.
yeah, he absolutely did. And he wanted to get out of it so bad, but at that
Yeah,
point, but
yeah. It was kind of a trap. Yeah.
and he was caught in a trap, I guess.
He was caught in a trap. Yeah, yeah.
But so okay, so it's not just Beatle history for you. You know your Elvis stuff too, I guess.
I know. Okay, let me get back to your Beatles question. I'm gonna think of one for you.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I'll just ask you one on the top of my head.
Okay.
How many times did Ringo? How many times has Ringo ever been in the ocean in his life? That's really not a Beatles. That's my solo Beatles trivia. Then I'll give you a Beatles trivia.
Okay. Well, I have a feeling this might be an unexpected answer, given he
Hmm.
had Octopus's Garden, Yellow Submarine, but I'll say zero.
Right. You're close.
Oh,
You're close. Ringo moved to Los Angeles, in the '70s, and he said he never liked the water because Ringo's the Beatle. He couldn't swim. He's the only one that couldn't swim. So he didn't like the ocean. He didn't like going to swim pools. Where John was a certificate winning swimmer. He was a great swimmer, and the other two liked to swim. But Ringo said he never went to the beach. He lived in LA. He didn't go on the beach for 7 years. Then he said one day after 7 years, he goes, "All right, let's try." So he walked down the beach. I think he went to Santa Monica Beach. He stuck his foot in the ocean one time. He goes, "Okay, that's it." And he walked out. He said he never went back to the ocean after that. Ringo
wow.
just didn't like the water. He doesn't like the water. He never learned to swim. Yeah.
It's like the Beach Boys, like only one of them knew how to surf.
Is that right?
Yeah.
In Wilson or which one?
It was actually Bruce Johnston who came in a little later.
Right.
He was the only one that actually knew how to surf.
Oh, okay, that's great trivia. That's like ZZ Top. The only one is ZZ Top with a beard. Without a beard is named Beard. His name is Frank Beard. The other ZZ Tops with a beard are named, but his name is Frank Beard. He's a clean shaven one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I'll have
Okay.
to. Oh,
Okay. I'll give you one, Aiden.
all
Who
right.
was the first Beatle to smoke marijuana, and what did he do wrong?
First Beatles. I have it narrowed down to either Paul or George, and I'll say George.
Okay, good guess. The first time the Beatles smoked marijuana was when they met Bob Dylan in
Okay, that makes sense.
1960. I think it was 64, 65.
Mhm.
But Bob Dylan offered, made the first reefer and he gives it to John. He offered it to John. John gave it to Ringo. John handed it to Ringo. He didn't puff it. He gave it to Ringo. He goes, he's my royal taster. So Ringo got the joint and he started puff. And Ringo didn't know the marijuana etiquette. When you're with a crowd of marijuana, you pass it around. You don't bogart the joint. Which was named after Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart would keep his cigarettes close to him, so they say don't bogart the joint. But Ringo didn't know that, so he started puffing it down himself. He thought you smoke it like a cigarette. So he's getting stoned out of his head. He's smoking this joint all along because
Oh man.
Ringo smoked the joint. Then Dylan goes, no, you got to pass around and share it. But Ringo said he got really stoned back because he kept bogarting the joint.
That's funny. Well, I learned something new every day.
Yeah, that's true Beatles trivia. There you go. Well, Aiden, today is I don't know if you want me to give the date on your show, but today is the day that Meet the Beatles came out. The Beatles came to America February 7th, 64. Meet the Beatles was released this day. That was the first album I remember where, everybody had that album. Remember like Frampton Comes Alive, Peter Frampton. Everybody had that album. Everybody had to Meet the Beatles when I was a kid. I was like 6 or 7 when they came, and that was the album everybody had. That's the one where they have the shadow pictures,
Yep. Yep.
they're all lined up and they're taking like that shadow silhouette.
That's one of my favorites, actually. I have
Yeah, it's a
Meet
great
the
album.
Beatles and With the Beatles, both. I have them.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was with the Beatles in England.
Mhm.
And the American version was Meet the Beatles. Yeah.
And it's funny because I always thought, because I know this song, This Boy, is on Meet the Beatles, and I
Mhm.
think that would have been great on With the Beatles too, but I guess,
Interesting. Yeah, you don't know how they decide that. How
yeah.
did they? I think with Meet the Beatles, they cut out, edited out 5 songs and changed them. Why did they do that? I wonder.
And I
Who
want to
knows?
ask you, mate, you probably know this. Why did they call This Boy
Sure.
Ringo's theme?
But I guess because in the movie, in A Hard Day's Night, that's the one where Ringo, goes off alone. It's this one big
Oh,
solo scene, and he meets the boy, and he throws the stones and all that. So I
okay.
guess that's called Ringo's theme because of that scene.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah, it's a good call. You're right. Ringo has nothing to do with it.
That last question for you, Eddie, is, what advice would you give to anyone coming into the industry today, whether it be acting or comedy?
Okay, great question, and I get that all the time. Eddie, I want to get into voiceovers. Eddie, I want to be an actor. What do I do now? I always go, Aiden, this is what I tell people. I give everybody the same advice. I go, give it the 5-year rule. Give it the 5-year rule. And they go, what's that? I go, give it 5 years of your life. Devote 5 years because it's not too much. It's not too little. Some people want to be an actor or an actress. They'll come in a couple weeks ago. I haven't got a role yet. I'm not in the movies yet. What do I? It's like it doesn't necessarily happen that fast. It could take years. People are around for years and they'll finally get a movie or a TV show. Just because, like I say, it's not that you're not talented. It's just that the competition is so much and it's hard to kind of break in sometimes. But I always go, give it 5 years, put everything you have into it, get as much money to spare as you can, buy pictures, get yourself a good agent, get yourself a good manager, do your best at auditions, take lessons if you think you need them, try lessons, study movies, do your best, and give it everything you have for 5 years. Devote 5 years to it. And I go, after 5 years, if you look at a person's lifetime, because people are living now to 100 now, it's not necessarily common, but it's fairly routine. People, Mel Brooks is going to be 100. Dick Van Dyke just turned 100. People live to 100 now. So 5 years of your life is not really that big of a chunk. Give it 5 years. If after 5 years you haven't done anything, it's probably not right for you. It's probably not going to happen. So just give it up after 5 years and just move on to something else. And you can always say, I gave it my best shot. You don't regret it. Because I think a lot of people get to go, I always feel bad. I never tried it. I never tried acting. I always felt I should. So you could say at least you tried it. You tried your best and give it a shot. And maybe you'll luck out. Maybe you'll be just the right one. Because it's like we were saying, Aiden, earlier, sometimes you do a great movie and it bombs, or sometimes you do a terrible movie and it's a hit with the public. And an audition is just like that. Sometimes you go to an audition and you go, that was a terrible audition. I did so bad. And they'll hire you. Or sometimes you think you go in and do an audition, you go, "Oh man, I was so cool. I was like Marlon Brando," and then you never hear from them again. It's how you straight those people because it's like in like everybody views you through their own eyes. That's all they see. And maybe they saw something they want. Maybe they saw something in your character. Personally, they saw something that's right for the role, but maybe there's something you want. Or the other side, maybe you did do a good audition and there's just something they felt this guy is too intense for this role, or this guy's too young for the role, or whatever. Maybe there's just some subjective thing that wasn't right. That's all. But you can't beat yourself up. It's a acknowledge that you're going in a very, very tough profession and you tried your best. And, it's like we're baseball fans, you and me, okay? And let's say you want to be a professional baseball player. Do you realize how many guys you're competing against? Not everybody's going to be Babe Ruth. Not everybody's going to be Willie Mays. But you go in, you try your best, and maybe you'll luck out.
Right. Thank you for that. I appreciate hearing that advice.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sure many
You
of
want to be an
my
actor? You want to get into it?
I've thought about doing acting. I that's one of my
Hmm.
regrets was not doing theater in high school. I never went into it. I was
Hmm.
always in the bands and all that stuff.
Hmm.
For me, it's the music industry really, but doing this podcast is something that I am interested in going into, radio or stuff like something like that.
Cool. Okay. What instrument do you play?
I play several, but mainly drums, bass, and guitar. Little piano too.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And
Cool.
it's a lot of fun and meeting people, making connections. It's been one of the most important and special parts of my life, and I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, and that's the thing right now. This is stuff you can't imagine. When I started out with Grease, we couldn't imagine. We didn't know what cable TV was. We didn't know what VCR, VHS, DVDs. We didn't know any. The Beatles didn't know any of this stuff. But technology keeps going on and on and on and getting bigger and more vast. It's kind of like the inverse of humankind. Humankind, it seems like we're getting worse and worse. We're becoming more and more worse. We're hating each other more and more worse. Whereas technology, physical technology, is getting better and better and better. It's advancing. Mankind as human beings, as decent human beings, it seems like we're descending. We're becoming less and less.
Right. There's one line that just popped into my head, and you'll appreciate this. My bass player in my band, his high school yearbook quote was, "I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves, and I hope we pass the audition."
Very good. Perfect. Yes.
I don't know, that just popped into my head just
Perfect.
now, but
No, that's perfect. Classic Lennon. Yeah.
well, Eddie, this has been an absolute honor talking to you. And to paraphrase one of my favorite lines from National Lampoon's Vacation, I'm going to need plastic surgery to remove the smile from my face because this has been so much
Oh,
fun.
thank you so much, and I can certainly return the line. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I wish you continued success on your podcast.
Thank
God bless you, and keep doing great work. I love your show. I'd like to hear some of your episodes. I'd like to hear some other episodes, and I look forward to
Absolutely.
hearing this one.
Thank you. It should be up later today, actually. So
Great,
looking
cool.
forward to that.
All right, and I will always see you on Facebook too. We're Facebook pals.
Right.
Yes.
So for everybody listening, you've been listening to the legendary Eddie Deezen. It's been a great joy to bring this conversation to you, and I look forward to bringing more to you in the future. Eddie, thank you once again for joining me today.
Of course, my pleasure. Take care, Aiden. Have a great year.
Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, God bless, and we'll see you again soon.